If Andrew was a astronaut, he would never get picked for a spacewalk. Could you imagine doing a 4-hour spacewalk? And 20 minutes in, he goes, I need to pee. I'll be back in 2 minutes. You know when you start doing something a certain way, and then you notice somebody else change the way that they do a thing to match the way that you do it?
No, give me an example. What happened?
Well, I mean, we've been doing this podcast for less than a month now. We've only done a few episodes. And Serial has been going for over a year. And all of a sudden, and I'm not saying anything, but all of a sudden, Serial has a schedule of bi-weekly. Every 2 weeks.
That's not what bi-weekly means, but yeah.
Well, there's an interesting thing about that, because bi-weekly has two... If you look it up in a dictionary, it has two meanings. It means twice a week, and it means once every 2 weeks, which just...
I've two things to say to that. One, your definition of interesting is very loose. Two, it's not bi-weekly, it's fortnightly. If you say biannual, you don't mean once every 2 years. And Relay FM's did the same thing. They've changed almost all their shows to fortnightly.
To bi-weekly, were you going to say?
I almost said it myself. Because you've done it so many times.
But it's good. I'm glad to be influencing these sorts of things.
I think you thought that was going to be funnier than it actually ended up being. Right. I want to talk about fanboyism because I don't know why. I don't have an intro. Normally I have a thing to say to start everything off, but I think that like everyone sides with something. Like if you look at like sports teams are probably the first ones you ever come into contact with. Like people choose a side, and they align themselves with that for pretty much their entire life.
Yeah.
And if you ask them why they choose that, it's either geographic or they just chose. But then they become diehard fans of this thing, and they align themselves with it, and they almost like think they're a part of it. So I think that the biggest tell is when they say we did something. The only time I see that in the tech community is when someone like works at like an Apple store, and they'll say, I can't believe we did this. This is so great that we managed to do that. I was like, well, you sell iPods and iPhones for a living. You did not do that. But
I think sports is a bit different because with sports,
they don't operate in a vacuum. Like their performance is probably hugely influenced by the 50,000 people around them when they're playing. But
no, that's not what I was going to say. I was going to say that sports, you don't choose your team and you don't stick with the team based on their success. Like people align themselves with really bad teams, and like you say, it's based on like geography, and it's also based on what your family support and how you're brought up. But with if people are supporting like a tech company, like if someone was Android versus iPhone, for example, they're doing that based on like a set of ideals they have, and just by which one they like the most. And there's definitely a chance that they're going to switch between them like every few years.
I don't think people switch that often. Like if you look, one of the people love an underdog, and one of the bigger things with being seen as an Apple fanboy when like maybe 10, 15 years ago, it would be 20 years ago, it was when Apple really was the underdog, and people were like, well, they're making the better thing, they're just not selling the most. And when Steve Jobs came back and they came out with the iMac and the iPod and everything, everyone said, look, they are making the better things, they are doing something more interesting, and rather than just being uninteresting like Dell or whoever. And that changed over the years, because when Apple are now the largest corporation in the world, and you're now siding with like one of capitalism's biggest triumphs, and like you can't really empathize with that. Like if something goes wrong, you can't really sympathize with them, because like they're just this massive thing now. They've gained a lot of popularity because like they're now like, because people on Twitter are aligned with whatever's most culturally relevant or most popular. And that's why they still gain followers, because they like what it's cool to like. If you look at pop culture and pop music, a lot of it's crap, but everyone likes it. Well, everyone sort of goes, well, I like what's popular at the moment, and buying an iPhone's pretty popular. So like that's, if you look at their new fans, it seems to be those sort of people, and they don't really know a huge amount of the history, nor are they really that interested in a huge amount of the history, but they still align themselves with them because that's what's seen as interesting just now. Whereas Apple fanboyism as a history came from being the underdog. Well, even though like they were popular back in the in the 80s when the Apple II came out, and they were the prevalent platform, and then that changed when Windows 95 came out, and they were seen, like, people fought for them because they were like, you should take notice of this company because they're still relevant and they're still interesting. And then they rose from that and they became hugely popular, and their following just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And
yeah, I think there's maybe there's a feeling in the tech community that has always supported Apple and been the fanboys of Apple. And it's probably a feeling that's been around for about a decade now, so it's nothing new. But I think there was definitely a feeling of needing to support this company and needing to feel like, yeah, we're in on this thing and we're just a small group of people, but we can do it because this company is really cool and we really believe in it. And I think it's been difficult for those sorts of people to, when this change has happened, where Apple has entered the mainstream, and now Apple focuses on the mainstream, and a lot of the features they bring out in the old days would have been marketed a little bit at the tech crowd, and definitely when they're doing presentations, that they know who's watching, so they're marketing it at the tech crowd, and they want to, keep those fans engaged. But now I think people feel like they're watching Apple make all these moves which are aimed at just general consumers, and it's like Apple used to be focused on us, but they're not focused on us anymore because they don't need to be, and they're much bigger than that now. I think that's probably difficult for people in that fanboy community who remember those days.
And you can tell because people have struggled, because you look at their attitude towards the press. They used to do huge announcements at conferences like Macworld. Like, who really kept them going was Macworld's a magazine that has now been shut down, and Macworld did conferences in Boston and in California twice a year, and Apple used to show up, and that's where they announced the iPhone.
Yeah,
and they've now stopped that those conferences because Apple stopped turning up because they said they no longer need to, because they can now command an audience anywhere they want. So they can hold a press event whenever they want, and they'll get all the attention they need. Whereas before, they were really reliant on outlets like Macworld and people like Jason Snell, and that sort of community was really, really important to them. And that was how they kind of got their word out there. But as they've got bigger and bigger, they no longer need that anymore. So it's almost like they've began to neglect them. And that's why companies like Macworld have struggled in the past few years, because they were so focused on Apple, whereas now all of mainstream media is focused on them because they are the biggest company in the world now.
Yeah, you can definitely understand why they would feel neglected when Apple really did, like you say, they relied on them, and they relied on them for their events. And then at one point, Apple went, you know what, we don't need these guys anymore, we're just going to not do... Apple actually released a thing, I think, saying that they felt constrained on their releases, like they needed to hit the Macworld sort of deadline for each release, and they needed to have stuff to talk about at Macworld and then time everything after that tie everything into that, and they felt constrained. And that's a total attitude change to when they were relying on the fanboyism and relying on that sort of community. And then they had this change where they just didn't need that anymore, and so it became, rather than a helping hand, it became, a burden.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think you see that now with people who support Microsoft stuff, and it's seen almost as like, I think a few of the podcasts I listen to have started saying how they think Microsoft is far more interesting now, and it's almost like they're sheepish about trying to say that they think that Microsoft's being interesting, because the main the main conversation has been between Google and Apple recently, and the importance of Microsoft in the industry has sort of fallen to the side a little bit. So if you were to name the big five companies in technology, you would probably say it'd be Google, Apple, Amazon, Facebook, and then maybe Microsoft fifth. I'm trying to think who else you would maybe include now. Oh, and Samsung.
Yeah.
So I don't even know if you'd include Microsoft. Like Samsung would probably come before Microsoft.
Mm.
And I think that's
one of the reasons that I think people might have difficulty siding with Microsoft and saying, I like what Microsoft are doing. One of the reasons that I would have trouble doing that is that let's take Google as an example. Now, I don't use that many Google products. I do not have an Android phone or anything. I use Gmail, but anyway, I'm not particularly a Google fanboy. But I could see why people would be. I can see that Google has a consistent set of ideals and practices, and they tend to follow like a linear path, and they have done for a lot of years now. And so you can see why people would be like, yeah, I really like Google. I really like the direction they're going in and what Google does and how they're structured. And people say the same about Apple. People are like, oh yeah, I really love Apple products, and I like all of their ideals as well. But with Microsoft constantly seem like they're struggling. Like Microsoft have become very focused on design recently, and they're doing a pretty good job on their tablets. And I don't know what people think of Windows 10, but they had Windows 8, and then they jumped to Windows 10. But it seems like between all of these releases, they're just struggling and they're grappling to release something every time, and they don't know where their efforts are. They don't know where their focus is. They don't know what their ideals are. Like, they don't. Are we really good at design, or are we focused on business people, or do we want to keep XP going and keep people on that, or do we want to like have everyone on the latest, greatest release? And are we going to have something consistent there? Or are we going to just go, okay, people hated that, let's totally change directions and do this new thing? It seems like, although they do pick a direction and stick with it for a few years, it seems like they're grappling and they don't have a consistent thing where you can go, where you're sure that they're going to be doing the same sort of things in 5 years as they are right now. It seems like they just go with whatever works and whatever's popular and whatever's making money.
I think that's a recent thing, though. Like, when Steve Ballmer left, there was a lot of discussion about what his influence on the company was, and I think they got far too complacent on their existing technologies. So if you look at how they innovated after Bill Gates after Bill Gates stepped down as CEO and went and did all his philanthropy, you get movement on Windows, where they made Windows 7, which was probably one of the best Windows releases they'd had. And then they kept bringing out new versions of Office, and that's all they did. And Windows Phone fell for that because they didn't innovate properly. Like, they didn't see the iPhone as enough of a threat. They thought that they had the enterprise market down, and that was them. They had good deals with OEMs, and because that's basically their model, is they license software to hardware companies, and they've had to change that now because the industry got turned on its head when the iPhone came out, and now people like vertical integration, where you've got people own the entire stack, and their market of selling software to hardware manufacturers was turned over by Google, because Google made Android free for people to put on phones, and then like the phone market completely changed under them, and then they've now had to, like you saw what they did with Nokia, where they will find one partner, and then they eventually bought that partner, and now they've laid off most of those staff. They make their own hardware, they make their own PCs now with the Surface, and whilst they did that before, the Surface used to be tables that you used to be able to get at in Las Vegas and stuff in casinos. Like, the Surface used to be this massive platform where you could like put your drink down and it would sense that the drink was empty and somebody would come and bring you a new one, sort of thing. And that's now a tablet market, and they've had to completely pivot. So like they now own Skype, they own Minecraft, they're making the HoloLens. Like, they're just like throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks, because they've had to scramble to try and become relevant again, because under Steve Ballmer they became complacent and they lost their edge.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I want to talk a little bit about like the different types of sort of teams you can align yourself with that people do on either on the internet or in life, and sort of how people choose to associate you with those things. So if you look at like I get seen as an Apple fanboy. What in your life do you get associated with? Like, are you seen by your friends or by your family as an Apple fanboy, or as someone who knows a lot about some certain thing?
Yeah, definitely. Probably Apple, probably Twitter as well.
Yeah, so I get associated with being a bit of a nerd. I get told off for saying for starting most sentences with "I heard on a podcast that X." And normally when I say it, like, I'll come out with some random fact and someone will say, "Oh, did you hear about that on a podcast?" sarcastically at me. Definitely sort of more geek type things. Like I get associated with Apple by a lot of people. And do you ever see downsides to
that? Do I see downsides to people that
people aligning you with some sort? Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know, because I don't really have the downside that strikes me that might come up is, oh, what if they think I'm going to be really interested in something and it turns out I'm not? That doesn't really happen because I tend to be interested every time.
I'm more meaning whenever some controversy happens with Apple, I have a small subset of people in my life that choose to make they make a point of telling me that this negative thing has happened. Like the most,
and they rub it in, yeah.
Like the ones that come to mind are like with Apple there was a report of like their practices in China. I think that when a lot of people were killing themselves at Foxconn, and then Steve Jobs' response was, I think it was at the D conference as well. He said, "Well, if you look at it with the suicide rates in San Francisco, it's no worse than there." And
yeah,
and then people come up to me, or like, and another one was like with Bendgate, like the thing that happened with iPhone 6 where it would bend in your pocket, and it happened to me. I'm on my third iPhone 6. Well, I was at the time. I had 3 iPhone 6s because one of them bent in my pocket, and people are like, "Oh, so what do you think about this?" And like they'll tell me as if I'm at fault for these things, and they do the same with like when there's ever like tax scandals, and if I like, because I talk about how smart a company Amazon are quite often, because like because they don't pay very much tax because they make almost no profit, which is a very smart financial thing for them to do because they reinvest it in the company very intelligently, and like people choose to tell like as if I've done something wrong. Like it's just sort of the tone that they use, and you're like, well,
I know.
It's like, I had nothing to do with that because I don't actually work for this company, but they choose to target this controversy at you. And
yeah, I know what you mean. It's like they expect you to be answerable for it, and for you to respond to it and be like, oh, well, actually, it's not that bad because, well, okay, so a bad thing happened and I understand that, but it's not my fault, I do like the company, but just because they do one thing wrong doesn't mean that you need to come after me and tell me how, oh, see, you were wrong all along, Andrew, because you said you liked this company and now look what they've gone and done. Well, yeah, I like them, but, they're not perfect. I would always admit that, and
I don't defend companies anymore because this has happened for quite a while now. You learn how to adapt to these things. So you have to change the conversation so that the focus isn't about them telling you that something's wrong. You have to then change the focus to put something in the center of the conversation between the two of you, where you're both going, yes, this is the focus of the conversation, and we can both agree that was a bad thing that happened. And my opinion about the company or my opinion about this thing is irrelevant because we can both see that this was a terrible thing that happened. It's the same with like politics. Whenever some party makes some bad mistake, you can say, yeah, that was awful. Like, whilst I might align myself with this ideal or this side, we can both agree that what happened here is bad. And the same happens with music, because I get seen as a Blink-182 fanboy because I love them and I have my entire life. And,
oh, really? You
I
never talk about that.
And I have a tattoo on my arm of one of their albums, and when their guitarist split up the band in 2005 and went and did something else. People choose to come and tell me about how bad they are or how bad a person he is or all these things that he's done wrong. And you're like, I understand that either he or, like it was Tom DeLonge, either he or Apple or Steve Jobs or whoever are not infallible. Like they make a lot of mistakes, and I can see that. And it's like, and I'm able to have that conversation with you because I don't defend them irregardless. Because people used to defend Steve Jobs as if he was some infallible saint, and I never saw that. I mean, I think that his contributions to the world far outweigh anything negative that he did. Whilst he may not have been a perfect father at times, I think he made up for that in the future. Whilst he made some bad business decisions or made some enemies, and his managerial skills may not have been brilliant, I think that, like, out of that came a lot of positivity.
Yeah, I find it really annoying, actually. Now that you've redirected me to what you were getting at, I find it really annoying when people bring up people who are Android fanboys or just not Apple, or just not into Apple for whatever reason. They're like, oh, Steve Jobs was a terrible person, and they bring it up and they go on about it and they give me examples, and it's like, okay, right, I don't really know what you expect me to say to that. And I'm thinking of people in my head now. I can think of people who just go on and on and on about it, and they don't stop, like, oh, I know he was a terrible person because of this reason. It's like, I don't really care. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm sick of hearing about it. I'm glad
it's like when the Steve Jobs book came out, the biography, I had a lot of people read that, and a couple of family members who would read the book and say, well, he was an arsehole. And then you'd be like, yeah, my problems with the book are far greater than the fact that his character didn't come across very well, because he wasn't perfect. Like, he's still a human being, and they'll choose to then pick out 3 or 4 things in somebody's life and use that to bring down everything that person's done. And like, I'm not here to defend anybody, because
you're not responsible. Like, I don't know why people have such a problem with this concept, right? Somebody does some good things in their life, and like they make some really good, cool products, and you try their products and you discover that actually I really like these products, and they make more and you really like those. And people seem to have a problem with that, and they're like, oh, well, I'm gonna have a go at you because this one thing they did wasn't perfect, or the guy who did it also had some problems in his life, and therefore that totally invalidates the fact that you like it. It just doesn't make any sense. It's just really annoying. And I'm glad that you brought up music as well, because I hadn't thought about this. But I'm a big fan of Coldplay, so as you might imagine, there are 1 or 2 people in my life who give me a lot of shit for it.
I might be one of them.
It might be one of them, yeah. And these people are really annoying and really irritating. I just wish they would shut the hell up, you know. When I went to America, like I would tell people that, because I lived in America for about 3 months of last year, and I would tell people that I liked Coldplay, and they would assume that I was joking, like, oh, are you being ironic or something like that? Just because you're British doesn't mean you love Coldplay. But also in the UK, like I get a ton of shit for, because people, oh, I don't like their music, therefore I'm going to give you loads of shit. And the thing is that I find the impression of them really off. Is that people are like, oh, they're really boring and they're really dull and drab and sad and everything like that. But the album that I really like of Coldplay, that I listen to more than anything else by anyone, is Milo Xyloto. Milo Xyloto is a really upbeat album. It's got xylophones going. It's got heavy guitar riffs, and it's got like a lot of loud music. Like if you think of Every Teardrop is a Waterfall, Don't Let It Break Your Heart, Charlie Brown, Hurts Like Heaven, Paradise. These are all I might have said Paradise, I can't remember. These are all really dancey songs. Like, these are really, you know, they're loud songs. They're not just quietly on a guitar or just on a piano or anything like that. These are really upbeat melodies, and I really like that kind of music. And so people are like, oh, Coldplay are really sad and boring and everything. I'm like, no, it's just not the case. It's not. That's not what I get out of Coldplay at all. They have some songs like The Scientist and Fix You.
That's a good song. Scientist is a good song.
Yeah, and
you
but those kinds of songs are the ones that people, for some reason, think of, even though they're from like ages ago. But those are the ones that people are like, oh yeah, Coldplay are really dull, because those songs do exist on their older albums. But you know what I get out of them isn't that at all. So.
Yeah, that last bit that you said about what you get out of them, that's what's important. And I think that what enrages me the most about when people find out that my favourite band is Blink-182 is that I'm always told, oh yeah, I used to like them, but I outgrew it. And that phrase enrages me. Like, they go, oh, I just kind of grew out of that. I was like, oh, no, your taste changed. It's like when people say...
it's really condescending, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's fucking annoying because like you get something like see with video games is the same. People say, "Oh yeah, I used to play video games, but I kind of grew out of it." It's the largest art form in the world. Like it's not something you grow out of. It's just something you don't choose to find the time to do anymore. And it's the same with that kind of music. Like I like a lot of their songs because they helped me through certain parts of my life when I was growing up, and they're not they're like Blink-182 are famous for knowing that, like, they've got a song called like Fuck a Dog and songs like What's My Age Again and all the small things, which are just sort of like they're just like piss-taking songs that are meant to be fun and light, and they don't really have a huge amount of meaning. But they also have songs that are hugely are really about something important. Like there's and other bands like Jimmy Eat World and stuff do the same sort of thing, and they get branded under like that little emo subgenre of music. And when like it's that phrase of like I grew out of that, like yeah, now you listen to pop music and it's not the same. like Drake and I don't know, I'm trying to think of other people, like Drake and shit like that just doesn't hit me the same way. Like it doesn't, like I can't relate to that kind of music, and the shit that you hear in a nightclub it's not what I want from music. And yeah, so that like what it is to you is I totally get that. And I think the same happens when if you look at like the Apple versus Google thing, because the Android and iOS arguments are largely the same. Like people who like, oh, Google are open and Google loves being open and open source, and they try and contribute to the world, and Apple's just they sell phones for $600 and all they do is try and make more and more money, and people who are on the Apple side just see Google as an ad company, and they say like you're like the famous thing is like if you're not paying for something, you're the product. Like if you can't if it's not obvious to you who the product is, it's you.
But that's really that's a really convenient argument for Apple to use, because Apple makes its money from hardware.
Yeah, because their products are really expensive.
Apple runs an app store, and their products do so well because they have an app store, and they have this entire community of people who are making money off software, and software doesn't sell that much, so a lot of those are supported in other ways. But Apple's in this my point is that Apple are benefiting from all these other people being software companies, and Apple's one of the few companies who is making money off hardware, and that's a really convenient position for them to be in, because now they can go, oh well, if you're not paying for it like you're paying us, then you know they can use that against another company.
And that's it's fine for them kind of argument to make as well, because not everybody can do that. Because if you look at the phone industry as an example, there are two companies that make, if you look at all the profits, there are two companies that make money and the rest of them lose money. Like if you look at all the global profits made in phones, it's them, Samsung, and everybody else loses money. And it's very, very sort of high horse of them to have that kind of argument. And I think that's where Microsoft's struggling, because they have the power to do that as well, and they're struggling to try and do it, to try and replicate that. I'm bursting for a pee, so I'm going to have to go to the toilet. But think
All
of the
right,
next
go.
thing to say.
We'll just wait here, listeners. I can hold my bladder. I'm a grown-up. Just wait for him to get back. Back any minute. Any minute. Here he comes.
I am back.
Hi, how are you?
There's probably two things that come to mind when people who choose to say, look, people who align me with Apple and try and use that against me. Like, there's one specific scenario that says, look, no, there's two. One was I was at someone's house and a Samsung advert came on, and then I don't know, like we were just sitting chatting. I think I was having a cup of coffee, and a Samsung ad came on, and the person whose house I was at decided to then start talking about how great Android was and how crap iOS was and how it was a terrible system and they can't use it at work, and how for years they've been saying that Android's better and it's just so obvious now because of X, Y, and Z. And they wouldn't actually state actual things that have happened, but they would state opinions as facts. And I think that what you were talking about earlier with aligning with an ideal is quite important, because I had a debate in a park in the summer with a good friend of mine who listens to this show about Apple's practices.
Hi, friend.
About Apple's practices and how they don't sell product data for because they collect all the data for their users, and they say that they don't sell that for profit. And he called me naive for assuming that, or for taking that as true, taking their statements as true, because that's basically all that Google does. Is it gathers gathers data and it uses that to sell ads, and ads are still 92% of their revenue. Is that right?
Yeah, probably.
I think it's somewhere around that.
I can't confirm that fact because I haven't got it in front of me, but yeah, sure. I'll go with it.
If it's not 90%, it's around that. It's a huge amount of their business.
Yeah.
And the reason they make so much money from advertising is because they have so much information and they can target ads a lot better than any other company can. They also serve billions of page views a day. But so we were talking about why I can't remember what it was. I think it was just me saying that I don't trust them, and I don't use a lot of Google services because I find some of their schemes quite scummy. But I do use I use Google Docs. We use Google Docs. I have a Gmail account. I use YouTube a lot. But
I think other than using Google Hangouts, the biggest insight into your life is probably Gmail, to be honest, because I mean, you can see every site that you've registered with. You can see who you're getting emails off on a regular basis. And I mean, most of my communications doesn't go through email. So, you know, when the whole hacking thing happened, people were like, oh, they read all your email and all your messages. Well, most of my messages aren't through email. Like, I have very little conversation through email. But you can still pick up on things through that. And you can, if you're going to serve ads, you can still figure out a lot of somebody's interests just based on what emails they get into their inbox.
Yeah, and I don't buy the argument. You know, people who say if you've got nothing to hide, then it shouldn't bother you. I don't buy that. Like, the principle's the same. I think that's a bullshit argument, because it shouldn't be happening in the first place, regardless if you have something to hide or not. Like, I don't have anything to hide in my text messages, but I still don't want people to read them.
Yeah.
And like the same thing happens in the comic world, like, and I want to talk about franchises and stuff on another episode, but because I find it very fascinating how people side with Marvel. Like you don't like comics, or superhero movies, but Marvel versus DC is a very prominent thing on the internet, and people side with Marvel because they think that DC are now trying to replicate it, and to an extent they're true. They are trying to replicate the success of Marvel, because since 2008 when they brought out Iron Man, they have grown this what's called the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and they have, I think, 12 films now, and it's the highest grossing film franchise of all time. But they're not arguably the best films of the comic world, and DC are now trying to do the same thing with Batman vs Superman, which comes out in 2 months.
Mm-hmm. So I actually know nothing, like very, very little about Marvel and DC. So I'm going to ask you, what do you think the difference in ideals is between Marvel and DC?
I don't think they really do have any. I think they're just comic publishers. But
so the one that people side with, is that just based on which comics they like?
no, you see, this is the thing. Like, I doubt the majority of them actually read the comics. I think people just loved Iron Man, and Iron Man was really, really successful when it came out, and the DC films did better. Like, with the exception of, actually, if you look at the history of comic book movies, the first successful ones were Superman, and then Batman in 1989, and then from then, like, the only Marvel ones that got made, like, there was R-rated Blade movies, which were good. They look a little bit dated now, but after that was Spider-Man came out in 2000? It was either 2000 or 2002, and then an X-Men came out. Spider-Man made real money, but the first one to make proper money was Batman in 1989. And these were just like standalone films. Like, the publishers sold the rights to different studios. Like, Sony got Spider-Man, and it was like New Line got Blade. Warner Bros. Have always made DC movies, and the most successful one would probably be the Dark Knight trilogy made by Christopher Nolan, which has arguably one of the best movies made, which is The Dark Knight. And people side with Marvel because Marvel's popular. And I think that's the same thing, like when I was talking about with people siding with Apple, is just because it's popular and it's seen as trendy. But like, Batman is one of, like, if you look at the most iconic comic figures, you wouldn't say Iron Man. You would say Spider-Man, Batman, Superman.
Mm-hmm.
But people just people hate on DC because they love Marvel, and they can't seem to like both. There can't seem to be any middle ground where you can enjoy two films, with the exception of The Dark Knight, because Dark Knight is pretty much universally loved.
And where do you stand between the two studios?
I like both. Like, I can like both films. Like, I think there's a formula to Marvel movies, and I think like their most recent films would be which is like Iron Man 3, Thor 2, the second Avengers movie, and Ant-Man. They're just very samey, and like, with the exception of Guardians of the Galaxy, which was different, and it was out there and new and interesting. It was probably one of my favorite movies they've made in the past few years, probably since the first Avengers film. I need to pee again.
Are you going for a pee, and then when you get back we can finish the podcast? If Andrew was an astronaut, he would never get picked for a spacewalk. Could you imagine doing a 4-hour spacewalk? In 20 minutes and he goes, I need to pee. I'll be back in 2 minutes.
So, if you were to change the topic of conversation into social networks, people who are avid Twitter users have a specific thing they get out of Twitter, which people who aren't avid Twitter users don't really seem to understand. And it's like what they used to say, oh, I had a donut for breakfast, nobody cares about that. Like, and they again, it all comes down to people's condescending attitudes towards whatever it is that you're seen to side with. And
I think the message that we get out of this entire podcast, if there's one key takeaway, it's that people suck.
People are dicks, yeah.
Yeah, because I've had many conversations with Android users who are really into their Android phones, which have been entirely respectful, and they've been like, show me some new feature, and I've been like, oh yeah, that's cool, that's a cool idea, I like the way that they've done that. Or I might show them something that iOS does a bit differently, or we might have a discussion about the advantages and disadvantages of both, and it can be an entirely respectful discussion, and that's totally fine. But it's when people are like, oh, your phone sucks and my phone rules, it's just like, do you even hear what you're saying right now? Like, you can't be more rude than saying something like that. With Twitter though, yeah, people are disrespectful about Twitter. They're like, oh, I'm having a cup of tea, oh, I'm doing this. It's like, okay, you don't understand it, but that doesn't mean you need to like have a joke every time at the expense of the people who do use it, which, by the way, includes me, which you already know because that's why you're saying it.
And they generalize the use and the type of people who are on it. and there's a larger discussion to be had about to how to tailor your use of Twitter. Like, because I always say that Twitter is who you follow, and there's the generalizations that you have. Oh, it's just Justin Bieber fans, or it's just people doing X, Y, and Z. It's just people saying these things. Like, it's only that if that's what you choose to look at. Like, it only shows you what you want to see. And Facebook is not like that at all, because there's like a societal pressure to have your in real life friends on Facebook, and you have to put up with the random crap that they decide is important to them to post, which be it like when they have a child and all they do is post baby pictures, or if there's an election coming up, like when the Scottish independence thing happened, and all it was people on their respective sides of that argument posting like really opinionated views about that. The same happens with normal general elections, and like, whereas Twitter's not like that at all. Like, what's the argument that used to get made? Like, not the argument, the opinion or the saying that was said like before. It's like, Twitter's who you wish you were friends. The people you speak to on Twitter are who you wish you were friends with, and the people on Facebook are the ones that you actually are, or the people you wish you knew in real life. People on Twitter are the people you wish you knew in real life.
Facebook is really easy to get into because you join Facebook and then you add people that you know. The people that you know already, you just search their names and you add all of those people, and you can very easily fill up your Facebook timeline so that now you have all of these updates of people who are to some extent relevant in your life. By this point, most of the people that I have on there aren't relevant at all. But Twitter is a lot more difficult to get into.
Yeah, the barrier for entry for Twitter is a lot higher, and you have, when you first sign up, the suggested accounts are like those famous celebrity accounts. It's just like, oh, just read these. But the value that I get from Twitter is the same, that it's the voices and opinions of people who I associate myself with now, because people that have similar views to that I have, and have interesting discussions and interesting debates about things that I'm interested in across a variety of topics, whether it be technology or politics or pop culture or mainstream culture or whoever it is. I find that way more engaging than Facebook. I mean, I use Facebook. I get a lot of value out of Facebook as well, but I use it more for... it's like a non-taxing way of being able to keep up to date with what's going on in someone's life. Like, someone who you might not see that often, you can still keep tabs on how they're doing based on what they post on that. Like, people more update their life events on that, and I find that's fairly valuable, because you're like, well, I can keep track of what's going on in your life without having to make a huge amount of effort, which doesn't sound very good, but that's essentially what it is, without making a huge amount of effort. And whereas like Twitter is what you get out of it, what you put into it, whereas that takes a lot more time out of my day, I would say, because you have to contribute what you get out, and you speak. I actively speak to people a lot on it, and
Twitter's a place to make new friends as well, where Facebook is not that at all. Facebook's about maintaining.
I always have like this strange how well I can know somebody on Twitter before I can add them on Facebook, because they come up quite often in people you might know. Because I've met a bunch of people from Twitter in real life. I normally my normal rule of thumb is, if I've met you, I can add you on Facebook. But otherwise,
would you add me on Facebook?
I don't have you on Facebook.
No, I know you don't. Would you add me on Facebook?
I don't know.
You wouldn't add me on Facebook. We have a podcast together. Why would you not add me? Because we haven't met. Come on, you can't hold me to that rule.
That's the rule. That seems to be the arbitrary rule that I just made right there.
And I don't fit into that, so therefore I'm not good enough. I'm not a
Don't go in a huff.
I'm not. I don't use Facebook for anything, honestly. Well, that's not true.
Except when I ask you to promote the podcast and you say no.
Yeah. No, I post podcast links, and that is literally the only thing I've posted on Facebook in the past year is when I want to promote something, and that's it. That's literally it. I go on Facebook.
Friends must hate you.
I go on Facebook to use messages with like my brother and a few other people, but not very often. If I can avoid it, I do, and I really don't use it at all. So who I have and don't have as a friend on there just doesn't bother me.
Would you have family members follow you and talk to you on Twitter?
Ideally not. I mean, my Twitter isn't exactly a secret. I don't know if there's a way to get to my Twitter from Facebook. maybe if you like clicked on a podcast link and then you followed that to my Twitter, you could get it through there. But ideally, I wouldn't have them follow me on Twitter. Like, I don't post anything that I wouldn't really want them to see. I don't post anything embarrassing or anything. It's just like, they're not in my crowd, you know what I mean? Like, they're my family.
They're not in my crowd. Who is in your crowd?
Nancy. Cut that out. Come. I think we are done. Are we going to, like, do an outro?
I don't want to hear you spell your Twitter name out again.
We could get Song a Day Man to sing it for me. ANDREWPROGDENT.
Wow.
That's ANDREWLOWSO. The thing is when there's a W in there, it doesn't quite work.
Because you stumble over it and you have to do it again.
No, you have to treat it as 3 letters because it's 3 syllables. LOW L. How do you spell your surname? Doesn't matter. Let's do the outro.
Yeah, everyone should not follow me on Twitter, even though you now know how to spell my name. We had this argument last time and nobody knows how to spell my name. And you're just proving the point. Nobody... Fucking hell.
It's difficult to sing and spell in your head at the same time.
It's difficult to sing when your voice sounds like yours. Anyway. Right. Everyone should rate the show on iTunes, recommend it on Overcast, tell a friend, follow the Twitter account at Mumbler, go to the website, lowson.co. The show notes are there. Oh, yeah, if you download the show notes and links and stuff like that, pictures of our face and stuff are there. Yeah. If you Google your name, 1, 2, 3, you're the 4th. Your Twitter account is the 4th hit.
Is it?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. This isn't interesting.
If you yeah. Okay.
If you Google your name, what are you about to say? Andrew Lawson, you're the 2nd result.
You got pictures of my
University
face. I don't like it.
Yeah. Right there. 3rd result. There's a nice picture of your face.
Google images. Let's see. Oh no, there's pictures of me when I was a teenager. Oh, I don't like it.
Oh my god, look at this.
Oh wow.
I found a gold mine.
Oh, there's pictures of my friends as well.
That hair.
Oh god.
Oh, here we go. I like this one. Hang on, let me send you this one of your face.
Hey, I look like I've got a lump of extra hair on the top of my head. Oh, that was okay, right? That was me. I was 16 or 17, drunk on a train to Edinburgh. I think that's
yep.
I used to play basketball with that guy. Good. Me and the guy on that train picture. I'll put it in the show notes. We stood on a table in the cafeteria at school and rapped 8 Mile by Eminem. No, Lose Yourself from 8 Mile, the Eminem song. We rapped the entire thing. Because we thought we were cool.
Oh dear.
That was back when I liked rap music, but I grew out of that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That phrase. Man, my hair has not changed. Those pictures were 8 years old, and I have not changed. I have not changed my hair at all.
There was a person on Twitter who posted one of those videos, where it takes all of your pictures on Facebook of your face and shows you like how you've changed over the past 10 years. And he posted it, and honestly, he looks exactly the same. Like, he was 14 in the first picture, and he was 24 in the latest one. And I messaged him, and I said that, like, I'm not afraid to say that to him. Which is why I would mention it here. But it was just funny. Like he would agree that he just hasn't changed at all. It's just funny seeing this 10-year period of going from 14 to 24 and like zero change.
I went like full out emo when I was a youth.
I only started really like styling my hair at the age of like 19 or 18 or something. Like I just didn't bother before then. How old are you in that photo?
I got my emo fringe thing when I was 14. 13.
Really? Okay.
13 or 14. Yeah. Yeah, when I started getting into music is when I started styling myself like people who I like sort of idolized. I got into Blink-182 when I was about 9, and I started dressing like that when I was about 11. And then I took a picture of Take Off Your Pants and Jacket, which came out when I was 11. It was my first album I ever bought with my own money. I took a picture of the book, and the centerfold is a picture of the 3 of the guys from Blink-182. I took a picture of Tom DeLonge to a hairdresser and said, I want to look like this. And it's the reason I got a tunnel, like a hole in my ear. I pierced my ear and stretched it out. I tried to get a lip piercing, but my dad saw to the end of that.
How old were you when you got the ear thing?
15.
15, okay. Do you still have anything in your ear right now?
I don't have anything in it, but I have a hole in my ear because it doesn't go away. I wanted to get more tattoos than I have, but I never got around to it.
How old were you when you got your tattoos?
18. It was pretty much like I turned 18 and it got booked a month later.
Okay.
I knew someone who...
How do you feel about your tattoos?
I only have one.
How do you feel about it? You're happy with it, right?
Yeah, I love it. I want to get it. I would get it touched up to get the color redone, and I would get more if I had if I had an idea of what I wanted. The reason I never got more is like this one is important to me for specific reasons, and I would get more if I had the same feeling towards something else.
Yeah, I know so many people who would have gotten tattoos or did get tattoos at about the age of 18, 19, that they're like, yeah, I'm going to get this arbitrary thing that I've decided this week that I like some TV show which got shit in season 2 or something, like something that doesn't mean enough in their lives that they should get a tattoo over it. Like people make such irresponsible decisions.
Well, it's not irresponsible. Why is it irresponsible?
Because the this is the argument that you're going to hit, which is that like you're stuck with it for the rest of your life. So if I'm trying to think of an example, I don't know.
Why is it irresponsible?
Like, we have a friend of the family who went to Sunny Beach on holiday and got a tattoo on his arse which says "I heart Sunny Beach 2014" or something like that.
Okay.
And in 2 years' time, he's gonna regret that, and then when he's 30, he's gonna regret that, and then from then on, like he's gonna get in relationships at some point, and he's gonna have to explain that he was on a teenage holiday at one point. That now means nothing to him, but that's why he has this tattoo on his arse.
Yeah, but it's I take issue with that because just like it doesn't have to mean nothing to you. Like there's things that like that could remind him of a good point in his life. So he could constantly look at it and it's a permanent reminder of him of a specific time in his life. So say like in a couple of years' time something bad happens. Or something happens that brings him down or he gets depressed or whatever. And then you can go, remember that time that everything was going quite well. That's a reminder of something when everything was going quite well. And like, or people who get like TV shows or whatever, or I think it's like people get game designs tattooed on them. It's like it's just a reminder of something that happened in their life that had a positive influence on them. And whether it be an experience like a holiday, people get tattoos on holiday all the time, or a person or whatever, like that's a good thing. Like there's no reason to say, oh, he's obviously going to regret that because it's just a holiday and it means nothing to you. Well, there's no downside to it. It's there. Like it's not doing anything. It's not causing him any grief. It's not holding him back in any way. Like it's just a reminder of a good thing that happened in his life. And he's like, oh look, remember that thing. Remember that was fun or whatever. Like I don't see there's any downside to that. I don't see why it has to be seen as this horrible thing because it doesn't have any, because it's not immediately affecting him anymore. Like that, he's not on that holiday anymore. It doesn't really matter. Like what's wrong with him still remembering that was a good time? He just has to be related to people who decide to judge him for it.
I'm trying to think if I was to get a tattoo at the age of 18, what would I have gotten? If I had to get one.
The thing is,
and I don't know. Like, I might have.
But like, nobody makes you do it. Nobody forces you to do these things.
I know, yeah.
Like, I chose to do it, and the reason I chose to get what I did, because Blink was splitting up, and all these things have happened with that band that I do not appreciate. But that doesn't matter, because this is that's like a snapshot of what happened in my childhood that I really like. Yeah. And
I like the idea that it's a snapshot, because I like those sorts of things.
And that's exactly
it's the same
what it
way
is
that my Instagram's become very popular now, but in the early days before it was really that, I used to use it kind of like a snapshotting art project thing, where maybe once a month I would upload a photo, and it would be, I think this would be a good thing to put on Instagram, and a nice little thing to remember, or whatever it was.
But that's why those time-lapse programs are so popular, because it's like, remember what you've come through, and that's kind of what like people who have lots of tattoos are. It's like, oh, I remember where I was when I got this, and I remember the mindset I was in at the time that I got this, or I remember what was going on when I got this, and like that's a good thing. Like, whereas something that you might live to regret might be something you posted on Twitter or something you posted on the internet that comes back to bite you in the arse, and you're like, whereas like a tattoo it doesn't negatively affect you unless like people, you can have the professionalism argument about if they're on show and people who get like tattoos on the side of their face, but
that's not really what we're talking about.
But if he's got a tattoo in his arse, that's never going to come up in a job interview. I have one on the top of my arm. It's only going to come up if I go in a job interview in a vest, or if somebody sees me topless. Like, you can't. It's not. I don't understand the downside to it.
If I got a tattoo right now, I think it would probably be Coldplay lyrics. It would probably be Coldplay lyrics, but I think I would think about it in the context of, well, if this is going to be here in the future, I want to choose something that maybe represents how I feel right now, but something that I wouldn't be ashamed of living on my arm as a thing that people are going to see in 20 years. For example, if it was about an attitude towards the world that I didn't hold in the future, then it would be something that I don't think I would like having like right there on my body for people to read and to assume that it means something, like it represents a viewpoint that I hold.
It's like there's a Blink lyric that's like, look to the past and remember and smile, and that's essentially what this is doing. It's just like you looking at something in your past and going, yeah, that was good, and it just sort of picks you up whenever. Like
that would be a good thing to get tattooed on your arm. That would be a good lyric to get tattooed, because that's exactly what the tattoo's doing. Anyway, this isn't.
We should wrap this up.
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna have to edit this, and it's gonna take for fucking ever.
No, just cut the whole thing. Cut the whole thing out.
It's never gonna air. We did 3 episodes. That's a good run.
Alright, okay, cool.